Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the
Good.
last panel of our 4-day celebration of Sri Aurobindo's, the conclusion of Sri Aurobindo's 150th year. We've had such a rich array of speakers and presentations and contemplative music, book talks, and it's sad that it's coming to a conclusion with this session in a way, but the conversations will obviously carry on, and I do look forward to the next time that East-West Psychology, the department, and ACTS, Asian Contemplative and Transcultural Studies, can organize a conference like this again. But we're going to start today with a special presentation by Anshul Sinha. Anshul, are you with us? Are you able to show your video?
Good evening, Jonathan. Yes, am I audible? Hello? Jonathan, can you hear me?
I can't. I think you've unmuted. I can't hear you.
One second. This is Professor Puri from Delhi. I had a panel too.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. Maybe it's my setting.
Is there some change in the timing?
Okay. No, I'm sorry. It was my setting. So I can hear everybody now.
Sorry, this is Dr. Aurobindo from
Yes.
Delhi. I thought I have a session at 8:30. I mean, half an hour after this. Is that the case?
That is correct.
Okay, so somebody got an email saying the time has been preponed. But that's not true.
Our start time changed, but your panel time will be the same.
Oh, so we will be after half an hour of this?
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, of course, yes. And if you can get, hopefully the others will come on as well to join. But yes, Anshul will be presenting, we'll have a video and some question and answers with him for half an hour. So Anshul, are you there with us?
I am. Can you hear me now, Jonathan?
I can hear you, yes, yes. Are you able to join with video? I didn't hear the answer to that.
I'm trying, but it says that it's a setting on your end.
Okay, so how about now?
Does that work? Oh, yes, yes.
Welcome to the session.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm grateful to Debashishta and all those who are organizing this conference. Shall I begin, or?
You know what? I'm just going to read your bio, and then you can begin, and you can let me know when you want to share the video. But yes, so thanks for being with us, Anshul. So your presentation is called "The Symbol of Sacrifice: A Secret of Sustainability," and a little bit about you. You are an alumni of the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education, Pondicherry, and holds a master's degree in philosophy from Pondicherry University. After his graduation, he worked as a medical French interpreter while continuing to volunteer in the various departments of the ashram. For the past 2 years, he has been traveling in India, staying in different ashrams, acquiring experiential knowledge about the country. He is currently volunteering at SAICE as a French teacher and a theater workshop facilitator. His keen interests include world literature, history, poetry, theater, and ancient knowledge systems, particularly those within Indian tradition. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So Jonathan, I don't know if you received a link to play the video.
Yes, would you like me to do that now?
If you could. But before that, I would just like to talk about a little bit of what I have attempted. It's a very unusual presentation because I haven't done anything like this before. So it's something that I've tried for the first time. I've always wanted to do something similar, where I combine few of my passions, which is poetry and interpreting things from a philosophical point of view. So essentially, I have tried to capture the concept of sacrifice as I have understood it in the light of the Bhagavad Gita and Sri Aurobindo's understanding of it, which is very different from the traditional notions of sacrifice, which usually have this atmosphere of, certain deprivation or destruction, whereas this is not the traditional interpretation of sacrifice. It's a law that is helping us tune ourselves to the rhythm of the universe, and how to essentially surrender ourselves to the higher force. And so it's not, I'm using the word sacrifice, but what it essentially means is a self-offering and a self-consecration. So having said that, uh, I think we could, because the intention behind the presentation is not to make people think as much as it is to just make them feel, which I hope the presentation can do. So having said that, if you could please play that video, which is a combination, I would like to also say that it's a combination of poems that I have written and extracts from Savitri, which I have tried to blend seamlessly. So there are pauses to indicate that this is different, but for those who know Savitri will recognize the excerpts. Um, but the whole thing is not are not extracts from Savitri. They are a combination of my poems and Savitri and some verses from the Gita.
I am the seed seeking to sprout, the ember that awaits its flame, a being desiring to come out, becoming oblivious as it became. I am the imperative losing itself forth, hesitantly realizing possibility through the cycles of death and birth, unfurling my own actuality. At first was only an etheric space. Its huge vibrations circled round and round, housing some unconceived initiative. Upheld by a supreme original breath, expansion and contraction's mystic act created touch and friction in the void, into abstract emptiness brought clash and clasp. Parent of an expanding universe in a matrix of disintegrating force, by spending it conserved an endless sum. On the hearth of space it kindled a viewless fire that, scattering worlds as one might scatter seeds, whirled out the luminous order of the stars. The mundane is the magic of the supreme, a nothing that assumes everything, a wakefulness that passes as a dream, by sleep sustained in eternal being. Its body vibrates with boundless energy as a teeming infinite of inexhaustible force. All is the miraculous dance of the Devi, drawing incessantly from her mysterious source. In the intermingling of lives, that is life, amidst the endless waves of coming and going, our little island lies washed like a pebble, polished by the cosmic rivers flowing. Our little islands that are our worlds, our shores that only one horizon see, in a surrounding with which we feel at war, unaware it is ourselves we see. Only the fringe of a wide surge we see. Our instruments have not that greater light. Our will tunes not with the eternal will. Our heart's sight is too blind and passionate, impotent to share in nature's mystic tact, inapt to feel the pulse and core of things. Our reason cannot sound life's mighty sea, and only counts its waves and scans its foam. It knows not whence these motions touch and pass. It sees not whither sweeps the hurrying flood. Only it strives to canalize its powers and hopes to turn its course to human ends. But all its means come from the inconscient's store. Unseen here act dim huge world energies, and only trickles and currents are our share. Our mind lives far off from the authentic light, catching at little fragments of the truth in a small corner of infinity. Our lives are inlets of an ocean's force. A commerce separates me from who I am. A secret commerce binds me still. A bleating lion living among lambs, my desire the travesty of my higher will. With the invisible around me I communicate, hoping to commune with the incommunicable. I destroy the paradigms that I create, to manifest all that is immeasurable. An eternal sacrifice where I am the priest. I am the pit in which the fire dwells. I am the oblations, and I am the rite, the mantras I am, and from whom they well. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir, Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina. Annat bhavanti bhutani, parjanyad anna sambhava, yagyat bhavati parjanyo, yagya karma samudbhava. For everything I do is an act of theft when I do it for myself and not the inner me, when I do not partake of only what is left and douse the sacrifice with my greed. In a constant flux of give and take, sighs exacted for the pleasures I receive. From the law of sacrifice there is no escape. What we get is commensurate with what we give. The universe I inhale in turn breathes through me, the cosmos that I consume as time consumes me. Subject to interchange in the cosmic economy, I foster all the gods who in turn cause to be. But error breeds falsehood, breeds wrong, breeds evil. Incapacity meets death while desiring to be immortal. Entropy that creates yet yearns to become dust. The eternal is stolen from us by a moment's lust. Trivial amusements stimulate and waste the energy given to him to grow and be. His little hour is spent in little things. I remembered Maitreyi asking him, "Will these bring me immortality?" As I indulged in every passing whim, amassing my karmic debris. Every straw is the last straw in this habit of consuming. When we disregard sacrifice's law, we are the cause of our undoing. A wastage that engenders waste by the simple habit of habit, until the waste's all over the place and we leave what we inhabit. a suicidal rash expenditure, creating the world by a mystery of self-loss, has poured its scattered works on emptied space. Late shall the self-disintegrating force contract the immense expansion it has made. Then ends this mighty and unmeaning toil. The void is left bare, vacant as before. But there is a way to change the course. What we do is for the sake of the self. The end is not to return to the source, but to manifest the one in our cells. The body need not be discarded. This robe we wear can be born anew. The debris here can be rearranged to birth something entirely new. And I hear Maitreyi hinting at him. Maybe in matter hides an immortality, and the expression of this hidden dream demands the right of sustainability.
Thank you, Anshul. Very provocative, very beautiful. And we have a guest here with us, somewhat unexpectedly, in the room together. We're having growing the conversation a little bit to include Devdeep. So we're just going to discuss a little bit about your presentation. We're going to take questions as well. If anybody in the audience has questions, please type those in. And if any of the panelists here would like to comment or ask a question of Anshul, please feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, Anshul, I want to start by first appreciating very much what you have showed us now. I really thought that both the visuals as well as the way you have put together your poetry and Savitri are really extraordinary. And especially the aspect of sustainability in the sense of the sacrifice, the eternal absolute sacrifice. I'm wondering whether you could say a little bit more about how you are connecting these two. I think your video does a great job of showing what you are saying, but just a little bit to make it a little evident.
Yes. So the entire presentation is actually inspired from two paragraphs that I read. One from the Life Divine, this chapter called The Pure Existent, and the other from the Synthesis of Yoga, the chapter that talks about the triune path of the sacrifice and the Lord of the sacrifice. And if I could just maybe share a portion of my screen, because I also I have is my screen being shared?
Yes, you can see.
Okay, so I'll just really quickly just tell you what the first paragraph from the Pure Existent talks to us. This is a summary of it, and it talks to us about the following. I'll just read it out. When we shift our perspective from self-centered concerns to seek the truth with dispassionate eyes, we realize that the universe is an infinite and boundless force of energy existing independently of our egos or collectives. While we often perceive the world as revolving around us and our desires, it actually pursues its own vast objectives and standards. Now, this line, while we often perceive the world, this tremendous energy that we come in face with when we step back a little and we look at it, we think that this energy that's there out there in the universe, that is the universe, exists for us to canalize for human ends, as the passage from Savitri goes. And I think therein lies most of the problem of our sustainability, because we see that there is an energy, But because we don't know what the intent of that energy is, and when we use that energy for something that is other than what it is intended to, it creates some sort of residue. It creates what I'm calling karmic debris, which is our waste, which is all that our landfills are filled with. It's essentially, while that's there materially, it's also there psychologically, which is why, we keep coming back to the cycle of death and birth. So this, especially this line, is why I chose this para, because it really gives us the crux, the essential problem of anything to do with sustainability. It's our ignorance or our short-sightedness, which doesn't allow us to see the larger picture. Yet it's essential not to swing to an extreme in significance, as each individual and collective still holds a unique place in this grand cosmic tapestry. Finding the balance between humility and self-awareness allows us to appreciate the universe's immensity while recognizing our intrinsic value with it. So in that paragraph, he continues that while that's the case, we must not go swing to the other extreme and deem ourselves completely insignificant. So that's one of the paras that inspired this presentation. And the other one is, of course, the law of sacrifice. I'm not going to read the whole thing for want of time. However, I can read the first two sentences here, which essentially capture what I wanted to communicate. The acceptance of the law of sacrifice is a practical recognition by the ego that it is neither alone in the world nor chief in the world. Now, so we see that this law of sacrifice enables us to see the larger picture, enables us to see beyond ourselves. And while that is a great tool to recognize the larger scheme of things, it is also a way to communicate with the cosmos, which the Vedic rishis did, which we constantly continue to do. Sacrifice, what I mean, is just an exchange of energies, where I'm telling you something now and I have your attention for it. It's a moment of sacrifice. I am breathing in air and I'm giving out carbon dioxide. It's a moment of sacrifice. So sacrifice is this law which is inevitable. As he says in the following, sacrifice is imposed and where need be, compelled by the universal world force. It takes it even from those who do not consciously recognize the law, inevitably, because this is the intrinsic nature of things. Now, because this is the intrinsic nature of things, where nature will take, despite not giving, and that is the problem, where all the unsustainable tendencies that we see today is because nature is exacting it from us in her own ways. And to recognize this law is a step towards understanding how to be sustainable, which in my opinion begins at an individual level before it can translate it at a collective level. And therefore my presentation really delves into the psychological implications of this ignorance, of not being able to see the larger picture, of not recognizing the law of sacrifice. And lastly, just but sacrifice, of course, as understood in the light of Aurobindo and the mother, that it is not something, of the old ways of it's not an asceticism, it is not deprivation, it is not a giving up of something that is dear to me, as for a gain for something else, but it's a conscious, it's like what mother says in French, the don de soi, the gift of oneself, and a consecration, a self-consecration and a surrender. That is what I want sacrifice to mean through this presentation. So this is essentially the presentation that the two paragraphs that inspired me to make this presentation. And the poetry that I just wrote, I'm grateful for you, for Dave also, because a lot of it I did write at your place with with the pen and paper when it was just coming. So so my poems are, the first one, it begins with this urge, because there is a problem, there is something that we need to solve. We see that there is this need to be, but we don't know how to. And, we're as a collective, we're infants, right? In the cosmic scheme of things, we're like babies crawling and trying to understand what is consciousness, what is the purpose of life, what is evolution. And so there is this urge to become, but because it is informed, or it comes from the inconscious, it is a becoming that is very hesitant, that is ignorant. And so that's this urge, this irresistible urge that something stirred, that moved, and knew not how to be. This urge is what I'm trying to communicate in the beginning, before the beginning, actually, because the beginning is the next poem, which is an extract from Savitri, taken from the Godheads of the Little Life. So here we see, how existence comes into being, and it's a very Sankhyan interpretation of how the world comes into existence, where there is first the ether, and then there is all the five bhutas coming into existence with the actions of contraction, expansion, touch, friction, all these things. They beget, they birth this universe. And what is it that is birthing this universe? It is this boundless energy. It is this cosmic creatrix, which is the Divine Mother, who spends, but by spending, it conserves an endless sum. And here we already have the solution of how to be sustainable. If we know how to do what the energy, the universe is doing, we've solved our problems. Because here it is something that is spending, but while spending, it is that spending which conserves its endless sum. It's a little paradoxical, but that is the line that I wanted to really hit home, during the presentation at least. And that is what kindles the viewless fire. That's the beginning. And then I talk about, from the cosmic, I try to narrow it down to the mundane and to the world, what is happening there. And this poem sort of talks about that. And especially it talks about the exchange. I'd like to just focus on my analogy or metaphor of the island, where I'm comparing human beings or every individual existence to an island that is midst this sea. The sea is, again, the energy, the conscious force that is there. And the sea comprises of all the levels, all the planes of consciousness. And we are islands. We're islands that are polished like pebbles, polished like pebbles that are, being polished by the cosmic rivers, which are there. The cosmic rivers are these planes of consciousness, which are always in this flux. And our islands are like these pebbles, which are being polished by it, which are being, there's this constant give and take. Yeah.
Which
So,
are being right, yeah.
yes. And so, I could take you maybe through the thing, through the different poems, but I think for want of time, I shall just give you a cursory look at the titles so that you could just maybe understand some of it. The next one was just the ignorance, the reason why we aren't able to be sustainable. And then we get to the law of sacrifice, of how do we understand to mitigate these energies in the right way, so that there is no debris, there is no consequence. I mean, there's no consequence that is negative. So I'm calling it a cosmic osmosis. It's because we're like a membrane. Everything is passing through us. It's just that we don't see it. And to be conscious of that already helps us. The verses from the Gita were taken because they talk about the cycle of things, and also the aspect of sacrifice, as to who is the sacrifice and everything is the divine at the end of the day. And the shloka really talks about how the divine is the sacrifice, and the divine is the food offering. It is the fire, it is the priest, and all of that. And especially to do the action in the consciousness of the divine, that is what is the solution to doing a sacrifice. When we do something with that consciousness, attained by samadhi in Brahman action, then it does not leave a residue. Then it does not result in a karmic debris or any of that. It results in something perfect. And anything that we do for ourselves, as goes a shloka in the Gita, yo bhunkte stena evasa. So the things that we enjoy without giving to the gods or to to the things that need to be propitiated or given, because they are the ones who are bringing them to us. We're like thieves, you know, when we do not take only the prasad, only what is remaining of the sacrifice, and eat the whole thing. Ye pachantyatma karanat, we eat for the sake of our own hunger or desire, then it causes sin. For those who just eat the food without the prasad, the thing that remains of the sacrifice, then it leads to, you know, punya, or it leads to good. This is again another extract from Savitri, which talks about the way we all live. Most of us live our lives, which is just this. We don't see the grand scheme of things. We're busy with these trivial amusements, and that's how our energy is wasted. And that is because of a habit. And this, the last portion is actually a reference to a story in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishads between Yajnavalkya and Maitreya. And I will just be I'll be very quick about the story. So before Yajnavalkya goes to the Vanaprastha phase, enters the Vanaprastha phase of his life, the Vanaprastha is where he takes to the forest to contemplate on the divine, on the absolute. And, that's the Vanaprastha phase, which is preceded by the Grihastha, where he's living the family life, and he has 2 wives. And so he decides to distribute his wealth to his wives, Katyayani and Maitreyi. And Katyayani accepts whatever he has to give. But Maitreyi has this question, because she wonders, where is Yajnavalkya going? What is he seeking that he's ready to, you know, part with these things which we hold dear? And so the question, while he persuades her to accept it, she asks him, will these bring me immortality? And then Yajnavalkya says, that's the right question. Let me tell you about the Brahman, or the divine. And he says that not for the sake of the husband is the husband dear, but for the sake of the self. And he lists several things which are not dear for the sake of themselves, but for the sake of the divine within them. And Maitreya seems to be understanding, and he says eventually that everything goes back into formlessness. No nama and rupa, no formlessness, no forms, no names. And Maitreya is quite perplexed at this. And she says, I'm perplexed. I don't understand what you mean by this formlessness. And then Yajnavalkya says that, you know, the formlessness is the Brahman, it is Nirguna and all of that. Despite trying to be as neutral, it seems that Yajnavalkya ends with a nihilistic conclusion, a conclusion that is life negating, that is formless. But Maitreya's perplexity in that thing of what is this no forms and no names is actually hinting at something else. So this story was the inspiration behind the last poem, which I interspersed with an extract from Savitri. So this was the excerpt from Savitri, which talks about. So here we have what happens when we indulge in our unsustainable ways of living. It leads to a self-disintegration. It leads to the pralaya. This is a description of the universe involving itself back, or it's when creation happens. This is the nivriti aspect, where the creation is taken back.
Anshul, I think we're running out of time. So
right.
I really appreciated, I think, the way in which you interspersed Sri Aurobindo's verses with your own poetry, which I found very significant. Actually, you don't need to explain that much. It's all there. It was self-explanatory. And yeah, it was wonderful. So thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Debashish. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Anshul.
Yeah, very exemplary contemplative arts that you've offered here.